the permanent public employee was entitled to receive other benefits, such as health and retirement benefits, as may have otherwise been required by any employment contract or any collective bargaining agreement governing the employment relationship between the township and the permanent public employee during the term set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Board of Township Trustees of Orange Township, Delaware County, Ohio, hereby establishes the following policy pursuant to Revised Code 5923.05B for the period commencing October 1, 2009 forward. That permanent public employees, as defined by Revised Code 5923.05 of the Township, who were entitled or are presently entitled to leave provided under Division A of the statute, and who have been or are called or ordered to the uniformed services for a period longer than the statutorily defined 1-month period for each calendar year in which the employee performed services in the uniformed services as set forth in Revised Code 5923.05B, are entitled to a continuing leave of absence for the period in excess of 1 month, and were and shall be entitled to be paid during each monthly period thereafter, the lesser of A, the difference between the permanent public employee's gross monthly wage or salary as a permanent public employee, and the sum of the permanent public employee's gross uniformed pay and allowances received during that month, or B, $500. Be it further resolved that the Board of Township Trustees of Orange Township, Delaware County, Ohio, hereby directs that the above referenced policies established by this resolution shall be retroactively applied to the specific time period for which each resolution is applicable. So moved.
I second. Mr. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Cassidy? Yes. Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And that brings us to a discussion about the Olentangy Watershed Planned Partnership. And Ms. Yu.
I just wanted to bring you up to date. We've been meeting, our last meeting was after 2 weeks. We've been meeting monthly now. The meetings are going well. Surprisingly, they're going relatively smoothly considering the diversity of the group that's been put together, not only from a density standpoint from Columbus versus the far north counties north of the dam, and their needs are greatly different than Columbus, but also the group itself has a great diversity of development-oriented municipalities with environmentalists that are looking to kind of balance that out. We've really been working well together. To date, we're a little bit behind schedule since they signed all the agreements, I think 2 months late. The grant, which is supporting the MORPC program, has allowed them to extend it 2 months into the 2012 deadline of when the plan will be completed. To date, so far, we've outlined a goal statement and defined that. We've defined what we're terming a priority conservation area, a priority development area, and they've also elected to do a priority agricultural area, and we've defined that. Our next step will be to identify criteria to have those areas defined graphically on a map. I think that the most important distinction of the definitions that we've done so far is the language that designates those definitions as they all include so far designated by local jurisdiction. So that basically means that we'll have influence of the areas that are identified based upon the criteria. We won't be able to unilaterally just remove areas if it meets the criteria, but we will be able to take specific areas based upon our plans and influence that map as to how it comes out as a final idea. The next steps that we're going to be doing, so far we've been doing consensus voting as to the definitions and stuff, and I've not been voting because there's, even though Orange Township is a voting member, we've not kind of figured out how exactly we're going to do that, and that's kind of one thing that I'd like to discuss. Right now, we're kind of in consensus, and we're at the very early stages of the definitions, and although they're defining kind of out how we're moving forward, they're general enough that they don't have specific ramifications to Orange Township. As we move forward, though, I think Orange Township should be represented as an actual vote. And I'm not sure how we want to do that, if one of the trustees would be voting, if they'd be giving me the proxy, if, just kind of how that's going to work, and at what point. The next step is to identify the criteria for each of those areas, and then to come up with a map. And that map would be brought back to the town. There will be a consensus vote from the partnership on these criteria. And so there is some urgency so that we can keep moving with it and be representative from Orange Township. I have not been silent as far as putting forth what I think those definitions should be, but I have not participated in the votes, neither voting for or against or abstaining. I just kept silent.
So my understanding, I've got a couple of questions I would like to ask. So how far along is the partnership in actually identifying and defining the criteria to be used in each of the areas?
Right now, what we've decided at the last meeting last week is for MORPC to put together some ideas of what has been used in the past on the 4 plans that we've looked at. They've provided some information on some suggested criteria or some example criteria. I can go into as much detail as you'd like to hear, but that criteria will define the areas on the map, and the criteria will also be based upon whether MORPC has that information or not.
And when are you meeting again? I know you met on the April 29 and also on May 13th.
Correct.
Right. When are you meeting again?
It'll be sometime in June.
Okay.
We actually didn't set the next meeting date. It will be, I want to say, it might be June 10th was the next schedule, but there was some discussion about changing that since we had just met in 2 weeks, and we wanted to look at some additional time looking at the criteria.
Okay. So my understanding is, from what you've written to us so far, is that basically we've got two major issues that we sort of need to talk about and or resolve this evening. One of which has to do with the voting rights. You know, who do we want to be representing us when it comes to voting at the partnership? And that could either be yourself, if we so choose to appoint you, or it could be one of the trustees that would go for the purpose of voting. The other thing you brought up was how things are to be reported back to the township. You know, what that mechanism would be. And I have my own thoughts as to what I think I would like to see coming back to the board. But at this point, I'll open it up for deliberation of the board, but I think those are the 2 things we need to consider.
I'd say, unless there was a trustee that felt strongly to be fully participating in the watershed group, then I would defer to Ms. Hugh to be that active voting member.
Okay.
I mean, if there's someone that among us that wants to be that person, then I can support that as well, but
Yeah.
in the absence of that, I would support Ms. Hugh serving that role.
Okay. Mr. Quigley?
The biggest thing is also the reporting mechanism, making sure that we're getting all the information back. My biggest concern. I mean, at that point, if I'm comfortable with this, or maybe if a trustee was available to attend, facing more information to make sure that we'll keep in touch with what's happening.
Well, I guess the unspoken part of this is not only, if we choose to appoint Ms. Hugh, but making our which is known to her, so that she knows how to